You may have heard me say on the podcast before, small steps create small outcomes and big leaps create big outcomes. And I do stand by that. However, when it comes to the actual shift, as in the actual increase in your income or the shift in how you're feeling or whatever it might be, sometimes it's just the tiniest actions that create those huge breakthroughs. Want to find out more about what I'm talking about? Well, make sure you stick around for today's episode of the podcast. If you are looking for a massive business breakthrough, I would love to invite you to come along to the Business Breakthrough Roadshow that is coming very soon to a capital city near you. Well, if you're based in Australia. I am coming to Brisbane, Sydney, Perth, Adelaide, and Melbourne to be talking about how you can create rapid growth in your business in the year 2025. I'll be sharing how you can really uncover what the money stories are you have that hold you back in business, how to create big energetic shifts, and practical steps that you can take to create growth in your business this year. To find out more, click on the link in the show notes for today's episode. I am so delighted to be bringing the Business Breakthrough Roadshow to you here in Australia. If you are from overseas, my apologies that you aren't able to join for this one, but who knows, maybe I'll come to a city near you someday soon. So let's talk more about business breakthroughs. I want to start with this story. And before I share this story, I need to preface it with a disclaimer. Okay, this is not weight loss advice. Please go and see your doctor for circumstances that are appropriate for you, yada, yada, yada. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is related to business, so bear with me. Over a year ago, I lost 8 kilos and I've kept it off for this whole period of time. You might remember I did a podcast episode about it way back when. Now, I never actually shared at the time what I was doing differently. You know, I did say that I'm not a weight loss expert, I'm not a nutritionist, all of those things. So I didn't actually share what I did, but I feel that it's really relevant to share one of the things that I did as part of this story. So, backstory, I am someone who has eaten healthily most of my adult life. I've come from, I guess a family history of obesity, and I've always had to be really conscious about what I've eaten, and I've been someone who exercises a lot. I have walked almost every morning of my life since I was a little kid. So most of my life, I've been fit and healthy. And when I had my second child, after my first child, I, was able to lose the baby weight. After my second child, I really, really struggled to lose the weight. I wasn't doing anything really different to what I'd done before. I did, in fact, exactly the same thing that I did after my first child. I was exercising the same. I was eating the same. But for some reason, it was a good 5 years, 6 years maybe, I could not lose the weight. And a couple of years ago, my husband started this thing called intermittent fasting, which I'm sure you may have heard of. If you haven't heard of it, it's basically where you eat within a specific window of time, which is different for different people. Different people do it different ways. So my husband started doing this and he lost quite a significant amount of weight. And at the start, I was like, I'm not doing that, I'm not interested in that. And then I thought, do you know what? For me, it was a goal of mine to lose some weight. I wanted to get back to the weight that I was before I'd had my son. And so I thought, I'm going to give it a try. So I started doing the intermittent fasting, and basically the way that my husband was doing it was that he would just have his morning coffees. He has black coffee and then would start eating mid-morning to around lunchtime. So I started doing this as well. And I did it for a good 7 months and nothing changed. I didn't lose any weight. And I just couldn't understand why this wasn't having the same result for me that it had had for him. The only difference was that I had a little bit of milk in my coffee and my husband would have a black coffee. And I thought, I cannot drink black coffee. I am not doing that. Anyway, one day I saw my friend I'm going to talk about her a little bit later on in the episode as well. My friend Beck, she runs a company called Health with Beck, and she's all about helping women to lose weight. She's a qualified nutritionist. I will pop a link to her business in the show notes for the episode. Anyway, she was traveling and she was in Italy, and I saw her have her coffee and she had cream, like full fat cream in her coffee. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's even more calories than milk. But she explained that you can actually do this while you're fasting. And I don't know the science behind it, but apparently there's less sugar in cream than there is in milk. I don't know. Anyway, I saw her doing that and I thought, I mean, I'd love to have cream over milk. And I thought, I wonder if that works. And so I traded out my milk in my coffee for cream in my coffee. Now, when I did this, the weight fell off me. And I know that everyone is different and this might not work for you, but I just want to say for me, it was the thing where suddenly everything clicked. I lost 8 kilos in about 8 months, maybe 6 months. And I have kept the weight off now for nearly a year, maybe over a year now. Now, the reason that this worked for me was because of all the other stuff that I had been doing in conjunction with it. Having cream in the coffee wasn't some magical Ozempic weight loss thing for me. It was just the lighter fuel on top of what was already a really solid foundation of healthy eating, exercise. Like I said, I was walking every day, I was lifting weights. It was just the one thing that kind of just made it click. So the reason I am sharing this has nothing to do with weight loss. The reason I am sharing this is while it was just this one tiny tweak, it actually wasn't the small thing that I did. It was the series of all of the different actions that I'd been taking, walking every day, doing my weight training, eating healthy. And it was just the one small thing that actually made the shift or actually changed the result. Let me share a story about Beck. She's the one who, like I said, I saw having the cream and thought, what? That's so weird. And then I tried it and it worked for me. Anyway, you may have heard me talk about Beck before. She's a client of mine turned friend. I've had her on the podcast multiple times. So her business is called Health with Beck. Now, I'm not sharing anything confidential here because she's spoken about it publicly, including on my podcast. But her business in the past, I guess, 12 to 18 months has exploded into the millions of dollars a year in revenue. Now, on the face of it, when we sort of say, what's the big thing that's changed? She's like, it's really just the ads agency that I'm using. I'm putting more money into Facebook ads. Now, it sounds like one simple shift, but the truth is this. In the years leading up to investing more into her Facebook ads, she has been working tirelessly on her landing page copy, optimizing the words that she's using. She's been capturing all of these fantastic testimonials from clients of hers who've lost weight. She's been setting up her funnel and working out the price point and the ads that work to actually get the conversion. She's been testing the funnel. She's been building the operations and creating a premium customer service experience for people who come and join her membership. So yes, while there was this one thing, putting more money into Facebook ads, it actually was just the one small thing upon a really solid foundation of action upon action upon action. You can go and plug heaps of money into Facebook ads, but if you don't have the solid foundations of a converting funnel, if you don't have a customer service experience that works, it's not going to work for you. Let me share another story. I went on a date day with my husband. We went to a place called the Distillery. It's up here at the Gold Coast, kind of inland, in the hinterland a bit. Anyway, we went to this gin distillery on a date. And while I was there, they shared a story about what really blew their business up. And basically, they have this product which is called Ink Gin. If you haven't heard of it, the way that Ink Gin works is it's this really dark blue, kind of purple gin. And then when you add tonic to it, it turns this pink color. So it's kind of this mini science experiment that happens. And they shared, excuse me, they shared that years ago, Margot Robbie had come along to the distillery after she'd become wildly famous, and she thought it was really cool. So she posted a post about this ink gin and about this distillery, and their company exploded overnight from this one single post. And while it sounds like, oh, all I need is one influencer, the reason that this worked for them is because they had the foundations in place. They had an excellent product. They had the capacity for their business to explode. And they had the facilities to be able to distribute the product and expand. Because I'm sure plenty of influencers have posted about businesses before, but if they don't have the capacity to ride off the back of it, then it's simply not going to work. I want to share another little story. It's kind of related. Well, it's very related. There is a book, you may have heard of it. It's a children's book called Who Sank the Boat? It's written by Pamela Allen. And the story goes like this. Basically, there were all these really large animals that were climbing onto this boat. And there was a cow, a donkey, a sheep, I can't remember what else. But they've all climbed one by one onto the boat. And the boat still didn't sink. And at the end, this tiny little mouse jumped on the boat. And it was that incremental little weight from the tiny little mouse that actually sank the boat. Now, we obviously don't want we don't want our businesses to sink, but using the same analogy, it might just be the tiny little mouse, it might be the tiny little action that actually causes the business to blow up. So, how do you know what is that one thing that the lighter fuel for your business might be? And the truth is, you probably don't know what it is. Otherwise, you would have done it. You might not even have one. You might have a business where your growth is slow and steady. But regardless of whether there's one tiny tweak or the growth's going to be slow and steady over time, the thing is this. The only way you can create any kind of growth is by making changes, by trying things. There's a saying, the faster you fail, the faster you succeed. You learn way more from failing than you do from succeeding. And if there's one more thing I want you to take away from this episode, is that usually the small shift is only the final thing in a solid foundation of doing all of the other things, of laying the foundations of a really solid business. So if you want to create change, you have to keep making big, brave shifts. And you have to keep twisting and tweaking. And that's not just until you reach that tipping point. You can't just sail off into the sunset. You will have to keep doing this, tweaking, testing, learning, evolving, because as we know, the world is changing really rapidly. As a business owner, you have to keep on growing, adapting, learning, tweaking, testing. You're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. I hope this episode has inspired you to keep on going, to keep on trying, to keep on testing in your business, because you just never know what is going to be that thing that really changes things. And don't forget, if you are interested in creating your massive business breakthrough, I'd love to invite you along to the Business Breakthrough Roadshow that is coming to capital cities here in Australia. If you want to find out more about it and book your ticket, it's only 49 Australian dollars for a full day of hanging out in person with me and a group of other really driven, passionate entrepreneurs. You can grab your ticket in the link for the show notes for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode of the Clarewood podcast, and I can't wait to be landing in your ears again next week. Adios.